I want to share with you one of my more prized possessions. This is obsessed with Star Trek. My sister made me get it for Christmas one year, so I'm going to do a question out of here and see if I can get it right. Alright, question 1264. Which Star Trek original series alien got a complete CGI upgrade and in a mirror, darkly? Was it A, Balok, B, Tribbles, C, Gorn, D, Escalbians? I have no idea, so I'm going to go with in a mirror, darkly. I'm gonna go with the Scalbians, D. It was wrong. It was C. It was Gorn. And I don't know what those are, honestly.
Engage.
Hey, I am still trying to work out this whole where I'm filming episode. I'm still on my bed. I actually took down the mirror behind me, so hopefully the light situation will work out better because it won't be reflecting off that. I'm hoping in the next few weeks or so I'll be able to get a chair in here and I can sit on that, because right now every time I move it bounces around the headboard and it doesn't work out filming here. But I'm just going to go with this episode. It's called Code of Honor. It is the third episode of the first season. And it's actually a really straightforward episode as far as the plot goes. The Enterprise is going to this planet to make first contact because they have a vaccine that the Federation needs because one of their planets somewhere is having this really bad, like, worldwide pandemic that they need a cure for, and this planet is the only place that they can get the vaccine from. So the Enterprise goes there, they're making first contact. It's a very, like, proud kind of warrior race. It kind of reminded me of the Klingons, actually, because they have a very strict code of honor, which is the title of the episode. And they really do things very strictly by tradition. And the first thing you notice when they come on board is they don't have any women in their party. And they're really surprised that Tasha Yar, as a woman, is the chief of security. Because in their world, women only. They own the land, they like pick which men they want to marry, and that's pretty much it. Once they get married, or once they mate, they give all of their land, all of their possessions, really all of their rights, to whoever their husband is. So they're trying to make a pretty good impression on these people, and you can tell that, like, I think he's the ruler. I don't know if he's the ruler of the entire planet or just the faction that they're getting the vaccine from. I think he's not the entire planet, but he is pretty powerful. And he immediately takes a liking to Tasha because he respects how powerful she is and stuff. So whenever they're leaving, he ends up abducting Tasha. And the Enterprise immediately tries to get her back, tries to kind of threaten the planet, but Data, Troy, and Riker do some research on the planet, and they find out that this is actually kind of common. You kidnap someone, you steal one of their possessions, and then once you've proved your worthiness, then the other people actually come and ask for it back. It's not really an act of war, it's more just like a little kind of game that they play, proving their honor and their bravery. So they ask for Tasha back. Lutan, the leader, he invites him down to the planet, so Picard and Troy go. And they have little festivities. Picard asks for Tasha back, and that's when Lutan declares that he wants Tasha to become his first one, which is his wife, pretty much. His current wife takes offense at this, obviously, as anyone would. So she, I know the word. She challenges Tasha to a fight to the death, which Tasha accepts because that is the only way they can get the vaccine. Picard doesn't really want her to, but he recognizes that they can't take the vaccine by force, so they're going to have to negotiate, and the only way they'll give it to him is if Tasha fights this woman. And so they fight to the death. Tasha ends up injuring her with this poison spike glove that she's wearing, but they beam them both up to the Enterprise right away. They bring the woman back to life, and it all works out in the end because Tasha did abide by the rules. The woman did die. They just brought her back to life. So they get the vaccine. At the end, everyone's happy. It's really a basic plot line. Really the defining characteristic of this episode, well, maybe not the defining characteristic, but something kind of interesting about it, is that you don't have, like, too many plot lines going at once. In most episodes, you have the major conflict, and then you have a little thing with either a relationship going on or a wedding, or you just have, like, really a big plot line and a little plot line. And this one, it's pretty much the same thing, because they're trying to get back the vaccine. The only way they can do that is for Tasha to fight, and it all really fits together nicely. I don't know if that's kind of something that evolved later with the two plotlines going on at once, or if this one they just wanted to focus more on Tasha Yar's character, who really was the main character of this episode. That might be one of the reasons why I like this episode, because watching back, I really liked it. It's really cool, because people and the characters, they're so much different early on in the episodes. And going back, I didn't think that I really liked the first season, but I like it a lot more than I do. It has this weird kind of innocence to it, where the characters aren't that well developed, but just the way they interact, it's really neat because they haven't gotten all stiff and formal about it yet. They're all just kind of chilling up on the bridge, like, yeah, we have a captain, we have a first officer, but really we're all just buddies. I got kind of sidetracked there, but I like this episode because Tasha is the main character, and you really get to see some of her motivations and stuff. One thing about her is she is very dedicated to her job, because she does agree to participate in this battle to the death, even though Picard doesn't really want her to. Troy actually is an advocate for it because she realizes it's the only way they can get the vaccine, but Picard isn't really for it. And Tasha decides to go ahead with it anyway. And you can tell that she is very dedicated to her job. She's very dedicated to the Enterprise. And she was willing to do whatever needs to be done in order to just get the job done and just get out of there. Because she was really putting her life at risk in a situation where she didn't necessarily have to. Like, they could have just taken the vaccine by force, but that wasn't something that she was willing, or Picard was willing to do. So she was going to participate in this battle anyway, which I thought was really cool. You also kind of see, in this kind of odd scene between her and Troy, you realize that Tasha actually is kind of attracted to Lutan. Even though he did kidnap her, he's not the one who challenged her into the fight to the death. That was his wife. But he is kind of the perpetrator behind it. It's his fault that she has to fight. But she is kind of attracted to him, which it's kind of weird. Like, you wouldn't imagine that you would want to do that, but it's just because he is such a strong character. He has such a strong, like, he has a strong personality, and I know I'm repeating myself. He's kind of like Marlon Brando, Stanley Kowalski from A Streetcar Named Desire. That's what I'm going for. He's just kind of brutish male, stereotypical, like very strong male personality type. And that's not really something that you want permanently, which Tasha wasn't just going to go off and marry him. But she was kind of attracted to that, especially her as such a strong female personality, and she was such a tough woman, and she was attracted because I think she kind of felt a kinship to him. And I mean, like I said, she's not going to go marry him, but I thought it was cool this episode you kind of get a little interaction between her and Data, because the last episode was the episode where they went off and slept together, and they kind of like each other still, because at one point, I think it's the only time they actually talk in the episode, but at one point she's saying that Lutan's wife thinks that Tasha is in love with him, and that's why she wants him to fight. And Data looks at her, and he says, "Are you in love with her? Are you in love with him?" She's like, "No, of course I'm not." I mean, she doesn't even know him. Data looked kind of upset about that, actually. Like, wait, are you in love with him? Wait, I thought you liked me. That kind of thing. Like, he doesn't say that, but you kind of get the feeling that he at least had the vested interest in whether or not Tasha has feelings for this man. The main reason that Tasha has to fight, I think her name's Yarina, Lutan's wife, the main reason that Tasha has to fight her is because they can't violate the Prime Directive. And I think this is the first time that this has really come into play in the Next Generation. In the original series, it's more like they're just kind of space cowboys. They are part of the Federation, but they run around and they do really whatever they want to do. They don't have a lot of rules. But in the Next Generation, they have the Prime Directive, which they can't break. And it never actually says what it is. It might. I don't exactly remember what it is. They might say it at one point. But basically, they can't force themselves on primitive races. They're not supposed to make first contact if they haven't gotten warp power yet, and they don't have warp drive in their ships. And they can't affect the development of different races. Whether or not they're more primitive or, like, more advanced, they can't really force themselves on them. They can't supply them with technology, or they can't force on their ethics or their values or their laws onto other societies, which is really a very good system. But in this case, it works against them, because if they didn't have the Prime Directive, they could just beam up the vaccine, steal it, and leave. And really, these people would have no way to stop them, because they don't have as fast ships, they don't have as powerful weapons. But because of the Prime Directive, they're kind of hobbled, and they have to just do whatever these people, I forget what their race is called. I think it mentions their planet once, but they basically have to do whatever they tell them. And that's why Tasha has to fight. And Picard actually goes off on this little speech at one point, and he's like, oh, I'm rambling, and Troy goes, oh, you have the right to ramble. And he says, I don't have the right to ramble if it's something that everyone knows. But it's really him telling us what the Prime Directive is, kind of saying, it'd be so much easier if we didn't have this principle of non-interference. And this is something that holds true for the entire rest of the series. The Prime Directive comes into play at least every other episode. They keep bringing it up, or after a while you just recognize that this is what they're adhering to. And it makes the show more interesting because they can't just run around doing whatever they want. They aren't allowed to just go off, take what they want, you know, even if people are in their way, they have to play by their rules. And that's pretty much what it is. You have to respect the rules and the customs of another culture, even if they make no sense, even if you think that these people are really stupid and they're committing atrocities even, you can't interfere because that's their society and that's the way that they want to do it, so you just have to let them. And that comes into play a lot because the Enterprise, they're flying around to different planets and they just kind of have to go along with whatever they find. Unless they're actually attacked, then they can interfere. But it's really instrumental to this episode because this is when it first comes into play. And again, I know I'm talking in more general terms still. I think as the season goes on, as the different seasons progress, it'll get more episode oriented. But right now, there's so much of these episodes that applies just in general terms to the entire rest of the series, because the character development, the different little things that they introduce, like the holodeck, these all play a major part, and that's what this season is supposed to be. It's supposed to be, this is what this show is going to be like. So it's really impossible to talk about one episode without going on and talking about all the rest of the episode. They're saying, oh, this episode ties back to it. And I'll try not to do that, but every once in a while I know I'll be really referring to these really, really general arcs, because that is what these episodes are about. So, moving on. Another character that really is in this episode a lot is Wesley. And I know last time I said I didn't really like Wesley that much. I kind of have to take that back. I didn't mean to come off as Wesley hating as I did, because he does kind of get on my nerves, but he is just kind of like this cute, you know, kid wandering around the ship too, and he's really likable in some scenes. Because in this episode, Beverly comes to the bridge and she goes into the captain's ready room to talk about the vaccine, and you see Wesley over hiding in the turbo lift like he did in the last episode because he just wants to see the bridge. And she turns to Picard, she talks about the vaccine, and she says, another thing, I have to talk to you about my son Wesley. And he kind of freaks out because he doesn't like kids. She's like, he's hiding in the turbo lift right now. And Picard's just like, okay, I'd better go deal with this. So he walks up there and he says, Wesley. And Wesley's like, I haven't set foot on your bridge. So Picard kind of invites him up, look at the bridge, and he actually lets him sit at the con, which I think Data usually sits there. But he lets him go sit there, and they're in orbit around a planet at this point. So there's not really anything important that Wesley can do. But you can tell he's so excited to be allowed on the bridge. And all the rest of the officers are just kind of back there looking at him. Riker's looking kind of proud because him and Wesley are buddies from the first episode for some reason. And later on, like, Wesley is on the bridge later at the end of the episode when Picard comes back, and Picard's just kind of looking at him like, why is he still here? And Riker's like, oh, I let him go sit at the con for me, I'll get someone else now. So Wesley has to leave. Picard kind of thanks him for being there and says, maybe we'll get you on the bridge again. And I don't, like the last episode, I mentioned that maybe Wesley kind of used Picard as a father figure. I just made that up as I was talking. It never really had occurred to me before. But as it goes on and I view the episodes through that lens, that idea, it really makes more sense. Like, he views Picard, it might not be as a father figure because he never really knew Picard, but he definitely respects him. And he definitely does want to kind of be accepted by him. It might just be because he's the captain of the ship. But Wesley do know that him, that Picard and Wesley's mother, Beverly, are good friends, and Wesley, I feel like he's never really had a strong father figure, so he's kind of accepting Picard as that father figure. And it's cool as the series goes on because as they interact more and more, it's maybe a few episodes a season, honestly, where they actually do have a conversation even, but you can tell that they get closer and closer as the series goes on. And it's neat because you can see that Wesley matures and Wesley becomes more self-confident, and that kind of goes along with Picard investing more trust in him. And I don't know if they're related. I don't know if this is supposed to be how you're supposed to read it, but I think it's a valid interpretation. God, I'm sorry. I sound like I'm reading like this Shakespearean poetry. I'm like, I think this might be the right interpretation. Where it is just a sci-fi show, but I can't help but take it seriously because I have invested so much time into it. But I do think that that's a way that you can watch it. There are different things that you can take out of this show, different ways you can interpret the character interactions, and it's fun kind of picking it apart and really trying to understand why you view it the way you do. And I think this is a relationship that is really fun to play with because Wesley and Picard, they are such opposite figures. Like, Picard doesn't like kids, he doesn't like children at all. He said that from the very beginning, and as it goes along, he kind of starts to like children more. Wesley, he never really has a father figure. He's a very outgoing kid, he's very smart, but he is kind of like that socially awkward a little bit. And he doesn't really do well with particular people, and he doesn't take an immediate liking to Picard, even though Picard doesn't really like him. And it's cool kind of seeing how as they're forced to interact more, how that relationship develops. But I'm going to stop rambling about that now, and I'm going to move on, and I'm just going to talk about something else now. Alright. I have this thing where whenever I watch vlogs, at least, I hate that you can't see the way the rest of the room looks. Like, you see the one little area when they're sitting, and you don't know what it looks like. And I have to, like, visualize these places in my head. So, today I'm going to take you on a little tour of my room. This is my window. Magic cards. Shelves that I haven't put up in the last 3 weeks since we moved. Guitar that I don't know how to play. Music stuff. Mirror that I realized I didn't take out of the way all the way for the video, and my lovely dresser, which my glasses from prom. And that's it. So this is where I live, and it is a dump.